All right, today we're going to crack open one of the most controversial and frankly most profitable parts of modern video games, the loot box. It's a mechanic that has totally reshaped the gaming industry and kicked off a huge global debate.
You know the scene. You're about to buy a new game, you're checking out the box, and you see this little label, kind of tucked away in the corner. You've probably seen it 1,000 times and maybe never gave it a second thought.
In-game purchases. Okay, sounds harmless enough, right? But what does that phrase really mean? Well, that little label is actually a doorway into a pretty complex and, for some people, a very, very expensive world.
So let's pull back the curtain and decode what that label is all about. Because behind those three simple words is a multi-billion-dollar business model that has completely changed the rules of buying and playing video games.
So here's the official definition from the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, the ESRB. But let's just break it down. Think of it as a digital treasure chest. You pay real money for a key, but you have absolutely no idea what's inside till you open it. And that randomness, that element of chance, that's what makes it so powerful and so controversial.
So how on earth did we get here? I mean, this isn't just some new feature that got added to games. No way. This became the engine of a massive economic shift in how the entire video game industry works and, more importantly, how it makes its money.
And wow, this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Back in the day, it was simple, right? A developer made a great game, and they tried to sell as many copies as they could. Success was just counting the boxes sold. But the new way? It's a completely different ballgame. The goal isn't that one-time sale anymore. It's about creating a constant, long-term stream of money from every single player, measured by what the industry calls lifetime value.
And this didn't just happen overnight. For decades, we bought games as finished products. Then, around 2006, the very first loot boxes started to creep into the scene. But the real tipping point, the moment everything changed, was in 2016 when a massive hit like Overwatch put them front and center. After that, boom, they were everywhere.
And the scale of this is it's staggering. Projections showed that annual spending on loot boxes and similar mechanics was going to hit $50 billion by 2022. So we're not talking about some little corner of the market here. This is a global economic juggernaut. Okay, but enough about the balance sheets and the business strategies. Let's talk about the real-world impact. What does this system actually do to the very people it's built for, the players? And the human cost can be, well, it can be absolutely devastating. This is a direct quote from a player sharing their experience. It is chilling. And it's a stark reminder that for some, the line between a fun hobby and real, genuine despair can get incredibly blurry. And here's the thing. The industry is very, very aware that this kind of high spending happens. They even have a specific term for these players, and they borrowed it directly from the casino world. They call them whales. And these players are absolutely essential to the business model. This chart just visualizes how incredibly dependent this whole model is on those high spenders. It is wild. You have this tiny, tiny sliver of players, less than 1%, 0.15% to be exact, and they are responsible for half of all the money made. The entire economic structure is literally propped up by a very small, very dedicated group of spenders.
Now, of course, the industry has a clear answer to all these concerns. Their main argument, which you can see here from an advocate, really boils down to one thing: personal choice. The defense is, hey, these are all voluntary purchases. No one is forced to spend a dime. Players are just choosing to spend money on games they love.
And that leads us right into the central legal and ethical hurricane surrounding this whole topic. Are loot boxes a form of gambling? And to even try to answer that, we've got to look at how gambling is actually defined by law.
So, legally speaking, gambling usually has these three key ingredients. You need consideration, which is just a fancy way of saying you're risking something of value, like money. You need chance, meaning the outcome is random. And you need a prize, getting something of value back. Now, with loot boxes, the first two are a slam dunk. The entire debate, the whole legal fight, it all hangs on that third element.
Yeah, the whole argument really comes down to what you consider a prize. The industry's point is you always get something from the box, so it can't be gambling. But critics fire back and say, hold on a second, players aren't paying for the common junk. They're paying for the chance at that one super rare item. In their eyes, everything else is just worthless filler.
To defend their side, the ESRB often brings up this analogy: collectible card games. And you know, it's a really powerful comparison because most of us get it. We know that feeling of tearing open a pack of cards, hoping and praying for that one rare find.
But critics say that analogy completely falls apart when you look at one key difference: friction.
To buy physical cards, you have to do stuff. You got to drive to a store, you wait in line, you pay. There are steps that slow you down. Digital loot boxes are the opposite. They are frictionless. Your credit card's already saved. It's one click, and another, and another. You can make hundreds of purchases in minutes, creating this high-speed feedback loop that just doesn't exist in the physical world.
Which leads us to the final, really big question here. With so much money and so much controversy on the line, who should be making the rules? Is this a case of the fox guarding the henhouse? Can the industry really be trusted to regulate itself?
Well, the industry's self-regulatory body is the ESRB. Their official mission is to help consumers, you and me, make informed choices. But critics will point to their track record and say they almost always side with the industry. They've maintained that loot boxes aren't gambling, and they only agreed to require companies to disclose the odds after the Chinese government had already forced the issue.
And because of that, you have consumer protection advocates like the National Council on Problem Gambling, who argue that self-regulation just isn't cutting it. They firmly believe that you need real objective oversight from an independent third party. They feel that having the industry police itself and just say, "Trust us," is never going to be effective.
Just so you know, the arguments and the data we've walked through today come from some incredibly deep research. Specifically, we've based this explainer on an article from the Chapman Law Review that really dives into the legal and ethical issues surrounding loot box self-regulation.
And that leaves us with this final critical question to think about. Gaming technology and business models are evolving faster than ever. So, in this new digital world, who do you trust to write the new rules? The people who create the games, or the governments whose job it is to protect the players?